Hello and welcome back to Holt Hanley Weather. In this live forecast, we're going to be looking at all the different severe weather going on around the country, and in particular, the torrential rainfall that is about to hit the southeast. And actually, it did hit the southeast throughout part of the day today, but it's really going to start filling in towards Thursday and Friday morning. Now, before we get started there, I will say that I make daily forecast videos every single morning, so if you enjoy following the weather or you end up enjoying this video, you can subscribe to my channel for more content like this. So diving into my screen here, this is the big story over the next few days. It's the severe weather that is moving into the southeast. As you can see, Mississippi is getting 3.5 inches right by the Pearl River Basin. If you remember, this area right here in Mississippi was flooded just last week. It was only a matter of days ago when they had a state of emergency up the central part of Mississippi in the Pearl River Basin. The rivers there reached the third highest levels they have ever reached, and thousands of homes were flooded. The streets straight up looked like rivers, and it was pretty crazy. And the thing is, the rivers haven't had that much time to subside. They haven't gone down that much, and the soils are still saturated. And that's not just true for Mississippi. That's true for Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina as well. This whole region has been getting tons and tons of rain over the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's really been nonstop. If you've been watching my forecast videos for the last month, it seems like in every single video, there is severe rain, heavy thunderstorms, or I should say heavy rain and severe thunderstorms building into the southeast. That seems like it's been the forecast for the last 3 weeks. And so I've been following it closely, and honestly, I think today and tomorrow are some of the worst rainfall rates that I have seen in the last month. And there has already been some crazy flooding, so that is most likely going to get even worse, especially here you see in Georgia, reaching accumulations over 4 inches by Friday morning. They already got some today, but as you can see, they're going to get even more. It's going to build into 4 inches. So we're going to dive into that, as well as a bunch of other severe weather that's going to happen across the country. There's a snowstorm that will be moving into the Midwest. There's a snowstorm that will be moving into the Northwest. And then I'll also update you on that bomb cyclone that was supposed to happen for the Northeast. And the latest model run is looking, well, it's looking interesting. I'll leave it at that, so you keep watching. But that bomb cyclone, I think, is actually the most interesting part of this forecast because if you remember, it was originally supposed to be 2 feet of snow for eastern Massachusetts. Boston was going to get 24 inches. And, well, the recent model runs have definitely changed that forecast. And you can watch to find out how. So here's what happened this afternoon. I figured this would be a good place to start the video, just going over what already happened in the southeast. As you can see, really high rainfall rates for Louisiana. Basically, the entire central part of the state got 0.5 inches per hour throughout most of the day. So you think about that. If they're getting half an inch an hour, it makes sense that they can accumulate 2 inches. All they need is 4 hours of this cell moving over their region, and bada boom, you got 2 inches of rain right there. And as you can see, it has also filled into Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. But the thing is this isn't the bulk of the storm. You'll see when the bulk of the storm hits. This is when really there's a lot of rain filling into Texas at this point too. But that wasn't the worst of it. Here is where we start to see some of those heavier rates moving into Alabama, about half an inch an hour, and then you're going to want to keep your eye on Georgia as well. Georgia really gets the bulk of this storm. If you remember from this screen right here, 4 inches of rainfall by Friday morning. And it's all associated with these high rainfall rates that are moving throughout Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. This is now moving into Thursday at about 1 in the morning, and you can see That low has moved into southern Louisiana, and some heavy rainfall rates in Mississippi, Alabama, even in the Alabama kind of border right there. And then there you see the low move into Alabama, and an interesting thing is going to be happening. It's going to be pulling in a bunch of warm air and moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. I'll show that mechanism in a second, but what that's doing is bringing in a bunch of warm air. That warm air is rising, creating a bunch of clouds, and it's also super moist. Think about that. That's the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of moisture right here. So when that gets moved into the area, it explains why we can get 4 inches of rain in parts of Georgia. The other thing to think about with this low is it doesn't just move through. If it started in Texas on Tuesday. So you'd think, if it's a fast moving system, it could be through Florida by Wednesday. Well, as you can see, by Thursday at 7 a.m., it's still hanging out in Alabama. And then it moves into Georgia on Thursday at about 1 p.m. And then you see those heavy rainfall rates really fill into the eastern parts of the state. While there's even a wintry mix up in Tennessee. No, that's a little to the right of Tennessee, but actually that's going to be interesting to see. It looks like Tennessee misses out on most of this rainfall, which is a very good thing because they recently had a massive tornado rip through the heart of Nashville. It was an EF3 tornado at 140-mile-per-hour winds, dropping hailstones the size of baseballs. And it's actually encouraging to see that this rain mostly stays south of Tennessee. That'll allow for some recovery to happen, and that is much needed. So you can see this low moves off by about Thursday at 7 p.m. And then it's actually going to hug the coast, bring some rain to the mid-Atlantic, and then it's interesting to see what happens when it moves up into the northeast area. If you remember, originally it was moving right off of Massachusetts, and it was supposedly going to bring 2 feet of snow to Massachusetts. Well, I'll update you on that as we get there. First, I want to go over that warm air moving into the southeast because it really describes the severe weather that we're going to be seeing over the next couple days. Again, the bulk of the severe weather over the next couple days is right here. It's in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. The soils in this area are already saturated. If you don't know what that means, if I'm getting a little too earth sciencey there, basically soils naturally have a bunch of air in them. You wouldn't think that, but there's air separating the different soil particles. And then when they're saturated, that means you got a ton of rain, and now there's no air. It's just 100% water filling all those spaces that used to be filled with air. Now, the soils are saturated throughout most of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia because they've been getting so much rain for the last 2 to 3 weeks. It's really been nonstop in this region. So what happens, the soils fill with water, and then when you get more rain on top of that, like we're seeing throughout the day Wednesday, throughout the day Thursday, when you get more of that rain falling on top of that soil that's already saturated, it can't soak in anymore. Think of trying to pour water on a sponge that's already filled with water. That water is just going to pour off the side. That's actually a pretty good analogy right there. If you have a sponge that is completely dry, it's a lot like how the soil typically is. It's filled with air. But if you soak that sponge in water, like this region has been getting with all the rain for the past 3 weeks, then that sponge is filled with water. So if you pour more water on that sponge, it's just going to flow right off. No more of it's going to get soaked up. And that's what's going to happen when this rain fills into Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. It's not going to be able to soak into the soils. It's going to flow right off and create flooding. The other big thing is the rivers and streams are already at their peak level. They can't get any higher. If they get any more rain, they're just going to overflow again. We already saw that in the Pearl River Basin going up the center of Mississippi. River reached its 3rd highest level of all time, and it hasn't had much time to go back down. So when this rain falls right directly on the Pearl River Basin, river is most likely just going to flood again. And again, it's because of this warm air pushing in. You see the low pressure system right here. This already moved through Texas, brought a ton of rain to Texas, 2 to 3 inches of rain throughout Tuesday and Wednesday. Basically, the entire state of Texas, except for the very northern part and the very southern part, saw at least an inch of rain. And then there's even one spot in New Mexico that got a little snow with this system. But now, this low has moved right under Louisiana. This is, again, Wednesday at 5 p.m. when I'm filming this live, and you can see the counterclockwise circulation around this low. On the left side of the low, it's bringing some of that cold air down. On the right side of the low, it's bringing warm air in. And the cool thing about this map is you can actually see it on the map. You see most of the continent, it's in the mid 50s, maybe 54 degrees, and you can tell because it's this green coloring. Well, down here, this is the really warm Gulf of Mexico. This is going to be maybe 75 to 80 degrees. And you can see as this wind pushes in the warm air that is over the water, that warm air gets pushed in, and you can actually see it creeping in to southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and southern Georgia. You see it's no longer greens right there. You're getting more of those 70, 72 degrees. Now what happens as that warm air pushes in, something interesting is going to happen. Think about boiling a pot of water. You can actually see the air rising out of the pot of water because it's warm. Well, the same kind of thing happens here. The warm air moves in. It's less dense than this cold air, so it rises up. When it rises up, you get clouds, and there's a ton of moisture. So then what happens? You get rain, just like this. And you notice it's right on that border where we saw the warm air filling in. That warm air pushes in, creates a bunch of clouds right there, drops the moisture as rain. It's one of my favorite things to look at. Now let's look at this low as it moves through. You're going to see, keeps bringing in that warm air as it moves through, and it doesn't just move through quickly. See, it really hangs out. This is now moving into Thursday at about 4 a.m., 7 a.m. It's just in Alabama now. It's a slow mover, and that's why there's going to be so much rain. If it just moved through quickly, you'd get some accumulations, but wouldn't be anything crazy. When it moves through slow, then you have the same area just getting drenched with rainfall for hours and hours at a time. Finally moves through Thursday at about 4 p.m. It's finally gone. So this is going to be something that will be very interesting to watch throughout the coming days. This is going to be a developing story. So if you want constant updates on this, you can subscribe to my channel. I do daily forecast videos every single morning. So I will definitely be updating you guys with this one as it progresses. Now let's take a look at some of the total accumulated precip for this storm as it moves through the southeast. As you can see, this is where it was really hitting today. We had some heavy rain in the western parts of Louisiana, and then there was also that isolated band in central Alabama where we got up to an inch, maybe an inch and a half in some places. And this is just what's accumulated by Wednesday at 1 p.m. So this is what's already on the ground. And then you also have to think about what I was saying about the soils being saturated. Think of that. Basically, the entire region already got rain today, and that's not even the bulk of the storm. See, the bulk of the storm really coming in about an hour or two. Once there has been time to accumulate that precip that we're getting right now, again, right now is really the bulk of this storm. Let's go check that out. Thursday, no, we're at Wednesday at 18Z. You can see crazy rainfall in Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, all getting it. And that's really going to start to fill in into southern Mississippi into the 2.5-inch range, and then it continues to fill in throughout this is 1 a.m. on Thursday. You can see 3 inches has built in to Mississippi, and then a couple areas of 2 to 3 inches have built through Alabama and Georgia. Crazy thing about this, though, it's only getting started. This is nothing compared to what we're going to see. It's crazy to see that basically the entire Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia region at this point has at least an inch. maybe even an inch and a half throughout basically the entire region. Now you see it really start to fill in. This is by 7 a.m. Thursday, so there's going to be a ton of rain overnight tonight. 3.5 inches southern Mississippi, up to 3 inches between Alabama and Georgia. Now keep your eye on Georgia here. This is where we're going to see some of the craziest accumulations. By Thursday at 7 p.m., central Georgia could have over 4 inches of rain associated with this system. Unbelievable to see. And I think this is about the bulk of it. That's after the low moves through, and this will be kind of the final snapshot of what this low is going to bring to the southeast. As you can see, an inch and up to 2 inches in Louisiana, 3.5 inches in Mississippi, mostly 2-inch range for Alabama, and then Georgia really gets the bulk of this storm. Majority of the state in that 3-inch range with even a bullseye over 4 inches. South Carolina too, getting around 2 to 3 inches with this one. So again, I'm going to be updating you guys with this storm as it progresses tomorrow. I'm going to be doing a forecast video tomorrow morning. You can subscribe to my channel if you want to see that as it comes out. So now let's transition out of the southeast and see what's going on in the rest of the country. So there you see, that's just the crazy rainfall that has been falling over the southeast starting on Tuesday and all the way through Thursday evening. But keep your eye on this low that is going to be moving through the Midwest. You see this low moves through the southeast, that's one we were just talking about, and this low moves through the Midwest, and it's going to bring some snow to the area. The other interesting thing to think about here, so if you remember my forecast video from the beginning of the week, the models were having these two low pressure systems combine, collide, and explode right on top of the Northeast. You can watch as I click through here, they're still going to combine, but it's not going to be as much as of an explosion as the maps were originally saying. The forecast models have changed a lot on this one, and I'm going to be diving into the actual Northeast region in just a minute or two. So you can see that low, now it's moved off 977, that's still an extremely low low. But again, original models had this entire area of the Northeast just covered in about a foot to 2 feet of snow. Now you can see just a dusting, and we're going to dive into that dusting in a minute. But first, let's look at the Midwest, because that's what happens first. In order for these two lows to combine in the Northeast, first that low's got to move through the Midwest. And the big thing with this is going to be lake effects now. So you're going to want to look at where the lakes are. You see Lake Michigan right here. And then typically areas downwind of those lakes are going to be where you get more snow accumulations. So as of right now, not a lot going on. And then that all changes. By Thursday at 7 a.m., you can see northern Wisconsin is actually getting some decent precipitation with this one. Going to be some decent snowfall rates in the northeastern part of the state, while the southwestern portion of the state is going to be in rain. And that's likely because for no other reason than the southern portion of the state is just a little bit warmer than the northern portion of the state. And you see that low move through right there? Ooh, those are some heavy snow accumulations just north of Michigan. So it'll be interesting to see if that can move down into here. As I'm going to show the snow accumulations in a second, you'll see there is actually a bullseye of snow up here. But Michigan does get a little dusting right here. Maybe 0.1 inches per hour as this low moves through. And again, that's completely due to this lake effect right here. You got winds flowing over the lake, picks up some warm air and moisture, and just like we saw in the southeast, warm air and moisture leads to rising air, moisture leads to a lot of water droplets, which can drop on the region, and when it's cold enough, you get snow. Down in the southern portions of the state, it's a little bit too warm for that snow, so it's mostly going to be rain down there, while a little more snow builds in to Wisconsin. So taking a look as this low continues to move through, Michigan continues to get some snow, and then really majority of the state is getting some of that snow by about Friday at 7 a.m. in the morning, and even a little bit has moved into Ohio. You can think about the circulation around this low. It's going to be bringing this cold air down. So there's likely going to be some really cold temperatures for the Midwest towards Thursday and Friday as that low moves through and brings down the cold air on the left side of it. And that's what's allowing those snow accumulations to really come in towards the end of this low. It's because it brings down the cold air, so then when you get precip, it can now fall as snow. And then moving through, that system is gone by Friday. Kind of similar with the southeast, and that's why that original storm system that was going to hit the northeast, the combination of the two lows that we were talking about right here. We were talking about the combination of these two lows, and the reason it was originally predicted to be such a massive storm was because the timing of these lows was originally going to be perfect, that they were going to collide, combine, and explode on the northeast right at the exact same time. Now you can see this low really moves off into the Atlantic a little more than we'd originally expected. So instead of combining and just having an explosion with this low that moves through the Midwest, it's more like this low moves off into the Atlantic and then that low just kind of gets absorbed into it. It's less of a collision and more of an absorption. So really dissipating some of the power that we could have seen. And I'm going to be diving into the Northeast, and it's also not final. It's also not final whether this low is going to move into the Atlantic this far. I mean, this is a few days off. You can see that's Saturday. It's only Wednesday right now. And forecast models, if you know anything about them, it's not a matter of if they will change, it's how they will change. I can pretty much guarantee that this low is not going to be right there at this time on Saturday. The forecast models will change, they will get better. So if you want to stay updated with this one, you're going to have to subscribe to my channel. I do forecast videos every single morning. I'll keep you updated because it will be interesting to see what happens with this one. If those two systems that we see here in the southeast and Midwest, if those two can combine like was originally forecasted, who knows, we could see 2 feet of snow in the Northeast. Right now, not looking too good. Right now, it's looking like just a dusting throughout the Northeast. But again, the power, the energy, the moisture, and the cold air are all going to be there. Now, I'll just say this real quick before getting back to the Midwest. This one is picking up all the moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, picking up a bunch of warm air, which leads to storm development, and it's also just picking up a ton of energy from the Gulf Stream that dipped down here. This one is going to be bringing cold air. So if these two can combine over the Northeast, we could see a massive snowstorm. Right now, a little too far into the Atlantic, but we'll dive more into that towards the end of this video. So as you see, that one has moved through by Friday. So Wisconsin and Michigan going to get the bulk of that. Let's take a look at some of those accumulations. By Thursday at about 1 p.m., you see Wisconsin's picked up maybe an inch, 2 inches in the very northeastern parts of the state where it's a little bit colder and you're closer to lakes. Really bullseye filling in on Thursday at about 7 p.m. So if we could see this system move a little bit farther south than it's forecasting right now, this could end up being a major storm for the Midwest. Yeah, that bullseye right there, 6 to 8 inches. That could just move a tiny bit farther south, then the really bulk of Michigan could be in this bullseye region where there's 6 to 8 inches. But they're still going to get something. See, basically the entire northern portions of the state getting about an inch, and then the very northern parts into that 2-inch range. And that's going to continue throughout Friday. So by Friday at 1 p.m., Wisconsin, the action's done for you, and then it's going to start to fill in through Michigan. 2 inches in the northern parts of the state, and then Ohio gets a little dusting, maybe an inch, and West Virginia could actually be getting 5 inches down here. I hadn't noticed that earlier, but West Virginia is actually going to be getting some snow with this one too. So let's take a look as this trough moves through the Midwest. It's interesting to look at. So this is Thursday, and this is showing the 500 millibar temperatures and winds. If that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, you can just look at the colors here. This blue right here indicates what the freezing line is going to be like and where that cold Arctic air is going to be getting pulled down. Whereas down here where you see the yellows and greens, that's going to be more warm, kind of above average temperatures. These purples are below average temperatures. So we see that system move through. It's going to be a cold one for the Midwest on Thursday at about 1 p.m. You can see that cold Arctic air is really going to fill into the region, especially for Minnesota and Wisconsin. And that's why Wisconsin was picking up some snow with this one. It's because the cold air is there. And this trough is going to move into the Northeast, bringing that cold Arctic air to Pennsylvania and New York on Friday and Saturday. And again, this was what was lining up for that possible giant snowstorm for the Northeast. You had the low moving through the Midwest, you had the low moving up from the Southeast, and then you also had this cold Arctic air filling into the region as those two lows were combining. So that means when the cold air is there and the two lows combine, that means when precipitation falls, it can fall as snow. So, alright, the moment you've all been waiting for, I'm finally going to talk about the Northeast and those two systems combining. And remember, this is going to change over the next few days. This storm isn't really hitting until Friday afternoon, and really the bulk of it's hitting Saturday. So if you want to stay updated with this, you want to subscribe to my channel. I do forecast videos every single morning. And if you enjoy following the weather and you enjoyed this video, then yeah, check out my channel. I love following the weather, so that's why I do these videos. I just enjoy, it's interesting to me. And this storm especially is interesting because if you remember, the models were originally saying 2 feet, 2 feet of snow for this entire coastal area. It was basically all of eastern Massachusetts was getting 2 feet of snow, all of southern Maine was getting 2 feet of snow, and even into southern New Hampshire. But as you'll see, the model has really changed on this one, and that storm of the season isn't looking as likely at this point. Again, could change though. So this is when the two systems combine. This is Friday at about 1 p.m. And you can see there's some snow building into central Pennsylvania, some really heavy rates in southwestern Pennsylvania. That's looking at maybe the 0.2 inches per hour of snow right there. That's when visibility is going to be pretty bad. And you'll notice the isobars, lines of constant pressure, they are looking really tight with this storm. So if you get heavy snow accumulations like this while there's heavy winds, well, that's when you can start to get blizzard conditions, visibility goes way down, and that's when the roads and transportation can start to get dangerous. So even though this isn't the massive snowstorm that was originally predicted, there's still some danger associated with this. So you're going to want to watch out while you're commuting throughout the day on Friday. As this moves through, western New York and northwestern Pennsylvania still, they're getting some decent snow with this one, as well as West Virginia. So even though it's not showing that 2 feet of snow that it was originally forecasting, this is still going to end up being a decent storm. It's worth noting. And this, see if you can guess why the snow is accumulating on the western portion of New York all the way along the state border right here of northwestern Pennsylvania and Ohio. Well, if you had been watching my video from the last 10 minutes, you'll remember me talking about the lake effect in the Midwest, and the exact same thing is going to be happening for the Northeast with this one. Remember, the low is down here at this point, and the circulation around the low is counterclockwise. So you think about that. That's circulation around the low. That's a fancy way of saying winds are moving counterclockwise. So when that happens, you can think about it. The winds are going to be moving down like this, bringing cold Arctic air over Lake Ontario and Lake Erie right here. Now, when that cold Arctic air moves over the warmer, moist lake, well, that parcel of air is going to pick up some of that moisture and warm air. It's going to rise up, and then the region's still super cold, so it's going to drop that precipitation as snow. That's basically lake effect snow in a nutshell. Cold air moves over a lake, picks up warm air and moisture, drops it as snow. And that can especially happen right now because these lakes aren't frozen. Typically, at this point in the year, these lakes are frozen, so you can't pick up that warm air and moisture as this storm will be doing for the western part of New York, northwestern Pennsylvania, and northeastern Ohio. West Virginia, that's just a random little batch of snow right there. It's literally like perfectly staying in the state border. And that's not real, that's pretty far away from Lake Erie. So it's interesting to see that that little bullseye is showing up. Remember, the accumulations show that they could be getting 5 inches of snow with this one. So as we move through, you can see that snow moves into the central parts of New York, and southern Vermont is going to be getting some snow with this as well. Something interesting to note here, though. Look how heavy those rates are around this low. So remember me saying we want that low to move back towards the coast. Where is that map? Yeah, it's right here. So this low is moving up. Keep an eye on it. It's the low right over Louisiana right here is moving up the coastline, and originally it was hugging the coastline so that it combined with this low and dropped 2 feet of snow in the northeast. Well, now watch as this low moves off a little too far into the Atlantic. Now you can really see that here. Those heavy snow rates, I said that weird. Those heavy snow rates used to be right on top of Massachusetts. Now they're in the Atlantic. And it actually used to be even higher snowfall rates because those two lows were combining in a more explosive fashion. We used to see some purples building into there, which is about 0.4 inches per hour. So let's see when this one is done. It's done by about Saturday at 7 a.m. So let's just click through that real quick and just do a quick summary of what happens. Friday at 1 in the morning, these two systems, the one that moved through the Midwest and the one that moved up from the Southeast, they combine at about Friday at 1 p.m. That's going to bring some snow to parts of Pennsylvania, New York, and even a little dash of snow in parts of Maine. Then that snow starts to fill in a little bit more in the region. We get some good lake effect in western New York, and then really some nice lake effect from Lake Erie in northwestern Pennsylvania and northeastern Ohio. And then basically all of West Virginia getting some good snow with this one. And again, that is Friday by 7 p.m. And even Massachusetts getting some snow. That's good to see. They've been missing out a lot recently because it's just been too darn warm there. Hey, look at that. A little snow for the coastal parts of Massachusetts. That is an area that has really been missing out on the snow this season. I believe somebody commented on my channel the other day that they're about 12 inches below average. So it's good to see them at least get a little bit. Even if it's not that 2 feet of snow that was originally expected, they're going to be getting something. So this is now Saturday morning at about 1 a.m. You can see that snow has moved through the central parts of New York, and then it is gone by the time you wake up on Saturday. So it's really a quick storm for the Northeast. Moves in Friday at about 7 a.m., and it's gone by Saturday at 7 a.m. So this is a quick one. It's a lot different than that low we saw move through the southeast starting yesterday, and then it's going to be lasting through Thursday. That's what's going to be bringing severe rain, severe flooding, possibly tornadoes to the southeast. Let's take another quick look at that. That's what's going on in the southeast. Severe weather. And it's because the low, unlike the northeast, where that low is going to move through in a day, this low is basically hanging out all week long. It started in Texas on Tuesday. Throughout the day today, it dropped some crazy rainfall to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. And then it's not just going to move through, it's going to hang out all Wednesday, all Thursday, and then it's finally gone on Friday. So interesting to see the comparison of the two low pressure systems and how they have different velocities. Let's take one more good look at those two lows combining for the Northeast, because I honestly think this is the most interesting part of the forecast. This is the bomb cyclone that everyone was talking about on Sunday, and then nobody was talking about on Monday because the forecast models updated, And everyone's like, ooh, I probably shouldn't have been calling that the storm of the season because now it's not looking too good. Well, let's look at what went wrong there. Wow, that is a tongue twister. What went wrong? That's a hard one to say. So, getting back to the weather, we got this low moving through the Midwest, this low moving up from the southeast. Gonna do two things. This low is picking up a ton of energy and moisture. This low is bringing cold air down, and you can actually see that. You can see the counterclockwise circulation around this low, where it's bringing up warm air on the right side and bringing down cold air on the left side of the low. So that's going to be, watch this cold air as it fills in through the Midwest as this low moves through. Really starts to move through on Thursday. Ooh, Thursday evening is going to be a cold one from Minnesota and Wisconsin. Temperatures below freezing. That's going to be true for North Dakota and South Dakota as well, below freezing. But watch as these two lows. Originally, this one was going to bring the cold air to the northeast, while this one brought the moisture, and it was going to drop 2 feet of snow. Well, now, watch as this low moves too far out into the Atlantic. And then that low, instead of them combining and exploding on the northeast, really this one moves off, and then that more northern low really just gets absorbed into this one. And that's really what ruined this bomb cyclone that everyone was talking about. It's just because this southeast low moved too far off into the Atlantic. But again, I'll say it time and time again, this is hitting Friday. The collision here happens Friday at 1 p.m. That's still 2 days off. And as you've seen with the models so far this season, 2 days off is a long time. A lot can change in 2 days for the forecast models, especially this season for some reason. So if you want to stay updated with this system as it moves through, you can subscribe to Holt Hanley Weather. I do daily forecast videos every single morning. So if you enjoy following the weather, or you're enjoying this video, you can subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Well, let's take a look at the 24-hour accumulated snowfall for the Northeast. And this is an interesting thing to look at because, again, originally this whole area covered in 2 feet of snow. So it's going to be interesting to see what the forecast models are showing now. So there's that low that moves through the Midwest, bringing the cold air and the snow with it. Keep your eye on West Virginia down here too. That is a weird little accumulation of snow. The only thing I could think of is if there's some really high mountains in this area, that probably is the Appalachians moving through there, which is probably accounting for why they're getting so much snow throughout the region. As you can see, big storm for West Virginia, actually. They could be in the 5 to 8 inch range, especially in those higher elevation places. Let's click back through and see the timing on this. So, by Friday at about 1 p.m., the only place that's really accumulated snowfall is this one little strip in West Virginia. By Friday at 7 p.m., we start to see some of that lake effect fill in for the western part of New York, getting maybe 1 inch to 2 inches, and then 3 inches building into West Virginia. As we move to Saturday at about 1 in the morning, you can see West Virginia moves up to about 5 inches, while western New York actually getting some decent lake effect snow with this one, pushing into the 4-inch range right here. It'll be interesting to see if they can end up getting 5 inches to 8 inches with this. I am actually going to forecast that they will. Based on how close the isobars look with this, I think there's going to be some really heavy winds pushing over Lake Ontario here, and I think that's going to lead to a ton of lake effect snow for western New York. Again, the thing to look at though, this bullseye, that's where the huge snow accumulations are, and it's just too far off into the Atlantic. We want to see this guy move right over Massachusetts, give Boston the snow they deserve, and then the snow is basically gone. No more accumulation throughout the day Saturday. So to end this video, I just want to jump right back to the southeast because that is really the big severe weather story that is happening right now and throughout the day tomorrow. You can see at 1 p.m. today, Louisiana was getting crazy snowfall rates, 0.5 inches per hour, as well as select parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, all got some really heavy rain today. And it's not stopping anytime soon. You can see by 7 p.m., which is in about an hour, there's going to be some heavy rainfall building into Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. They almost each get their own little bullseye. And you can see some really heavy accumulations where you see those orange coloring. That's where you're getting half an inch per hour. So if you're getting half an inch per hour, you can only imagine what you can pick up if that system is above you for 4 hours. Well, the math's pretty easy there. You can get 2 inches. And as it turns out, Georgia, by the end of this thing, could be getting 4. Again, the other big thing to think about, Pearl River Basin in central Mississippi flooded just last week, state of emergency, thousands of homes flooded, streets looked like rivers. And you can see heavy rainfall building into that exact same region that had their third highest river peaks ever. Well, those rivers haven't had time to move down. They're just going to fill up again, and that is definitely going to lead to more flooding. See that low moving through Louisiana, and some heavy rainfall building into eastern Alabama and western Georgia by early Thursday morning. This is going to be something to think about when you're commuting, and it's also going to be something to think about based on tornado warnings. It's going to be, if you have a weather app on your phone, I would turn notifications on right now because throughout the next few days, there is likely to be some flooding and possibly some tornadoes throughout Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. I would almost put money on it, and I would definitely put money on the fact that Georgia is going to get some severe flooding with this one, as you see. Basically, throughout Tuesday, move back here, they started getting heavy rain on Tuesday, then on Wednesday they're still getting heavy rain, Thursday still getting heavy rain, and there's really no break. Throughout Thursday, constant rain, half an inch per hour as the low moves right overhead. Basically the whole state just accumulating a ton of rainfall. And then the low finally moves off Thursday at 7 p.m. Took way too long to move through the region. Started in Texas on Tuesday, and it hasn't moved through until Friday. Way too long. So now let's look at what brought this system to the southeast in the first place. And it was actually this huge dip in the jet stream. They were calling this a very anomalous low. I can never say the word anomalous. And there was this weird giant dip in the jet stream that reached all the way down into Mexico. And what that did is bring a ton of warm air and moisture and just shot it right into Texas. You think about the water down here in the southern tropical Pacific, it's about 75 to 80 degrees. Makes me really sad that when I go surfing, I'm up here in San Francisco and it's about 50 degrees. But down here, really warm water, which means the air above that water is really warm, which means when these winds push that air over the region, then Texas can get a ton of rain, and we saw that throughout the day Tuesday and throughout the day today. Well, that giant dip in the jet stream just moves into the southeast. And then it has a nice, well, I shouldn't say nice low pressure, because it's going to bring some very severe weather to the southeast throughout the rest of the week. So that dip in the jet stream really fills in and just hangs out in the southeast throughout Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then you can see that other big dip in the jet stream that's going to be hitting the northeast on Friday at 1 p.m. Again, that's when that bomb cyclone was supposed to happen for the northeast, but the low moved too far into the Atlantic. But really, everything was combining for this system to happen. And honestly, I still think it could. So I might do my entire forecast video tomorrow morning on that bomb cyclone with the latest forecast model run. So if you want to see my update on if that giant snowstorm is going to happen to the northeast, you should subscribe to my channel. But really, everything was there. You got the low moving down from the Midwest, bringing the cold air. You got this low moving up from the southeast, bringing energy and moisture. You had a 500 millibar trough and a dip in the jet stream all lining up at the same time. At the same time, they were all going to collide. It was going to be the perfect storm. Massachusetts was supposed to get 2 feet of snow. Still could happen. I'm hoping for the best. But again, that low as it moves to the southeast, bringing in that warm air and moisture. And what that does, that warm air moves in, it rises, creates a bunch of clouds, and think about all that moisture that you're pushing in here too. That's Gulf of Mexico. That's all warm water right there. So as that moves into the region, it rises up, and then it falls right back down on southern Mississippi, Alabama, and especially Georgia, as we see this low really move farther into Alabama and then eventually Georgia, where you really see those heavy rainfall move into the state. And it'll be interesting to see if there are some tornadoes throughout this week, because there is a lot of energy, and I'm going to keep my eye on the wind shear because that's really going to determine if some tornadoes can happen. One last look at the total accumulated precip. This is what they already have picked up. So keep that in mind. This is what they already have in the region. Really, over an inch in central Alabama, over an inch in Louisiana. So the soils are already saturated. If they weren't already saturated from the 3 weeks of rain that have already happened for this region. Well, watch what happens. This is really a crazy map as you see this total accumulated precip fill in throughout the day on Thursday. You can see 3 inches in southern Mississippi. We're most likely going to see some flooding throughout the Pearl River Basin again with this storm. Rivers are still at peak levels. The water's got nowhere to go. It can't soak into the soil, and it can't go into the rivers. So there's really nowhere it can go except the streets, which leads to flooding. So you see 3.5 inches building in southern Mississippi as you really start to get those heavy accumulations into Alabama and Georgia throughout the day on Thursday. So tomorrow is going to be a big day for severe weather. I'm going to be doing a forecast video first thing when I wake up in the morning. I wake up at 5 a.m., so hopefully I'll get that video out by 7 a.m. before you guys are all commuting, because I'm going to have to wake up even earlier because you guys are 3 hours ahead of me. I'll try to do it. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll do a live stream instead so that it's just straight to you guys. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do a 5 stream at 5 a.m. in the morning. So check back to my channel or subscribe if you want to see that, because your guys' commute tomorrow is going to be hectic. There's going to be a lot of rain. Roads are most likely already going to be flooded. I'll remind you of, I think it's the Weather Channel who thought of this, or maybe it was National Weather Service. In the case of a flood, if you see a street flooded, turn around, don't drown. Majority of flood deaths come from people trying to drive through flooding. Makes no sense. Just turn around, don't drown. Why risk it? You also don't want to ruin your car. Moving into Thursday at about 7 p.m., you can see Georgia, 4 inches of rain with this one. Basically from actually North Carolina all the way down to Mississippi, getting over 3 inches of rain with this one. 3 inches of rain over the next 2 days. Guaranteed flooding, possibly tornadoes. I'm going to be doing forecast videos and live stream as this storm develops and the severe weather gets updated and I get more information. I'm going to give it right back to you guys. So subscribe to Holt Hanley Weather if you want constant updates on what the weather's doing. And if you enjoy following the weather, or you enjoyed this video, again, subscribe to Holt Hanley Weather for more content just like this.